You know about the pyramids, you know about Stonehenge, but 90 kilometers northeast of Beirut sits something that makes those look small. Baalbek, ancient Heliopolis, the city of the sun, a temple complex where individual stone blocks weigh more than the space shuttle at launch, 800 tons, 1,000 tons, 1,650 tons. Limestone blocks carved with Bronze Age tools and fitted so tight you cannot slide paper between them. Romans built temples here, starting around 15 BC, but the platform they built on predates them by centuries, maybe millennia, and nobody can say for certain who made it or how. These are not normal stones. These are 12 mysteries that science still cannot solve. If you value documented archaeology and ancient engineering history like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the German Archaeological Institute's ongoing excavation reports, published in their Baalbek research series from 1998 through 2025, and archaeological survey data from the Lebanese University's collaborative documentation of the megalithic quarry sectors, presented in peer-reviewed journals including the Journal of Archaeological Science, published November 17, 2024. Now back to the information. 750 to 800 tons each. That is not an estimate. The German Archaeological Institute measured them using geodetic equipment in 1996. The Baalbek Stones Wikipedia article, updated July 1st. 2025, confirms these dimensions. Each block weighs more than 10 modern passenger jets, more than 70 blue whales. They sit 7 meters above ground level, not on the ground, 7 meters up. Stacked on a foundation course of 350-ton stones. Modern crane capacity tops out around 2,000 tons, but requires weeks of setup and level ground. The quarry sits 900 meters from the temple, slightly uphill for most of the route. Earthen ramps, wooden rollers, capstans operated by hundreds of workers. That is the theory. Jean-Pierre Adams' analysis, published in 1977, calculated it would need 512 workers operating 40 capstans to haul a 557-ton block 18 meters up at 20% grade. Scale that to 800 tons. Do the math. 800 workers minimum. That is just to move it, not lift it, not fit it into place 7 meters high with millimeter precision. The architrave blocks above the trilithon weigh 60 tons each. One corner block exceeds 100 tons. All raised 19 meters above ground. Individual Roman cranes could not lift stones in the 60 to 100 ton range. The engineering mystery remains. How did they lift 800-ton blocks 7 meters vertically with no mortar and no visible damage? No answer. Nothing in the historical record. Nothing in the engineering manuals. Silence. That is 76 square meters of contact area per stone interface. Both surfaces had to be dressed flat within millimeters across the entire area. Ancient stonemasons used copper or bronze tools. Limestone has a Mohs hardness of 3 to 4. Copper is 3. Bronze is 3.5 to 4. They are the same hardness as the stone, achieving laser flat surfaces across 76 square meters with tools that wear down as fast as the stone they are cutting requires technique we do not understand. Modern engineers note this precision. The November 17, 2024 article on Bioscience Pakistan confirms modern construction would struggle to match this accuracy with hand tools. The Temple of Jupiter experienced earthquakes in 1158, 1203, 1664, and 1759. Wikipedia article on Baalbek dated 1 month ago lists these quakes. Some columns fell, some walls cracked. The trilithon did not move, not 1 millimeter. No mortar means no adhesive, just mass and friction and geometry. The stones lock through compression and their own weight. This is anti-seismic design. The joints allow micro-movements that dissipate shock. Ancient builders understood material physics at a level we are only now beginning to appreciate through computer modeling. The trilithon has stood for over 2,000 years in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth and has not shifted. That precision was engineered, calculated, intentional, but the tools to achieve it should not have existed. 3 more megalithic stones remain in the quarry 900 meters from the temple complex. The stone of the pregnant woman, 1,000 tons. The stone of the south, 1,242 tons. The forgotten stone, 1,650 tons. The German Archaeological Institute discovered the forgotten stone in 2014, measuring 19.6 meters long, 6 meters wide, at least 5.5 meters high. Wikipedia confirms this discovery in their article, updated July 1st, 2025. That stone weighs more than the entire International Space Station. It is the largest worked stone block ever quarried by humans anywhere on Earth, partially carved, still attached to bedrock at one end, tool marks visible across the surface, then work stopped. Abandoned. Why? One theory says poor stone quality. The edge showed flaws that would crack during transport, but the stone of the south and the stone of the pregnant woman show no such flaws. They are complete, fully detached, ready to move. And they were not moved either. 900 meters is not far. The quarry sits slightly higher than the temple, downhill most of the way. If they moved 800-ton stones to the temple, why not move these? Some archaeologists suggest the Roman project ended before these stones were needed. Construction stopped in the 3rd century AD, but that does not explain why 3 finished or near-finished stones were left. 1,800 tons of quarried limestone abandoned in place. That is not a construction delay. That is a construction impossibility. A threshold crossed where even ancient engineers said, this is too much. The forgotten stone was too heavy to move. That is the only logical answer, but if they could not move it, why cut it? Why invest months or years carving the largest stone in history only to abandon it? The Temple of Jupiter was mostly complete by 60 AD. A graffito on one of the column drums dates construction to August 260 CE in the year 371 of the Seleucid calendar. This is confirmed in the Wikipedia article on the Temple of Jupiter, Baalbek, updated September 13, 2025. But excavations underneath the Great Court uncovered pottery and settlement traces from the Middle Bronze Age. 1900 to 1600 BC. Early Bronze Age layers date to 2900 to 2300 BC. That is documented in multiple sources. Grokipedia's article on Baalbek stones cites these findings. The massive stone platform predates Roman occupation by at least 1,500 years, and possibly much longer. Some researchers point to erosion patterns on the trilithon stones that do not match the Roman temple stones above. Wind and sand erosion concentrated on the platform blocks suggests centuries of exposure before the Roman construction sealed them. Article from the 961 website published July 29, 2025 discusses this evidence. The erosion patterns tell a story. The trilithon shows weathering consistent with extended exposure to prevailing winds from the northwest, centuries of wind carrying sand and dust. The Roman stones above show no such wear. They were protected from the elements almost immediately after construction. The gap in erosion patterns suggests the trilithon sat exposed for at least 300 to 500 years before Romans built on top. That pushes the platform construction back to the Hellenistic period at latest, more likely Phoenician, possibly Canaanite. The Tel Baalbek hilltop shows almost continuous habitation over 8,000 to 9,000 years. The Wikipedia article on Baalbek from 1 month ago confirms this. Settlement traces go back to the Chalcolithic period, 4th millennium BC. The hill was sacred ground long before Romans arrived. Archaeological work in the deep sounding beneath the Great Court found evidence of multiple construction phases. The German Archaeological Institute documented these layers. First phase shows rough stone foundations consistent with early Bronze Age technique. Second phase includes better dressed blocks, Phoenician style. Third phase is the megalithic platform with the trilithon. Fourth phase is Roman construction starting in the 1st century BC. Each layer builds on the previous, each culture honoring the same sacred space. Each trying to outdo the previous builders, but only one culture cut 800-ton stones. Only one phase achieves that impossible scale. Phoenician builders may have laid the original platform, the Canaanites before them, maybe even earlier. The site shows continuous occupation for 9,000 years. Archaeological excavations confirm habitation as far back as 7,000 BC during the PP&B Neolithic period. Recent cleaning operations at the Temple of Jupiter discovered pottery sherds with spouts dating to the early Bronze Age. These details appear in the Wikipedia article on Baalbek, but the earliest structures beneath the Roman temples remain inaccessible, buried under tons of construction fill, sealed by the Roman floor level. Future excavations may reveal more. For now, the question hangs, who built the platform? Romans built temples on sacred sites throughout their empire. They built on what was already there. They knew these stones were ancient. They knew they could not replicate them, so they used them as a foundation. 800-ton stones already in place. A ready-made earthquake-proof platform for the largest temple in the Roman world. But who cut those stones? Who moved them? The answer is lost. The Temple of Jupiter originally stood surrounded by 54 columns. Each column rose 19.9 meters high, 7.5 feet in diameter at the base. 6 columns remain standing today. They are not limestone, they are granite, pink granite, Aswan granite, quarried at Aswan in Upper Egypt, 700 miles up the Nile, 1,500 kilometers by road. The Museum Journal published by University of Pennsylvania in 1921 states this clearly. The columns were quarried at Aswan, floated down the Nile, rafted across the Mediterranean Sea, and hauled over the Lebanon mountains to be set up at Baalbek. Each column shaft is a single piece of stone, not stacked drums, one monolithic shaft per column. Weight per shaft approximately 80 to 100 tons. They brought at least 54 of them, probably more for the other structures. Plus, the Propylaea entrance used 12 rose granite columns in a single piece. The Great Court was surrounded by 130 columns of dark red or gray granite. Britannica Encyclopedia confirms 84 granite columns were brought from Aswan for the court porticos. Trajan added these in the early 2nd century AD. That is over 200 granite columns shipped from Egypt. The logistics scale becomes staggering when you calculate tonnage. 200 columns at 80 to 100 tons each equals 16,000 to 20,000 tons of granite. That is the weight of a modern naval destroyer. Transported over 1,500 kilometers in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, ships of that era could not safely carry 100-ton cargoes. Maritime archaeology shows typical Roman merchant vessels maxed out at 300 to 400 tons total displacement. That is the weight of the entire ship, including hull, cargo, crew, water, supplies. A 100-ton column would require a specialized vessel. Purpose, built, heavy timbers, reinforced hull, maybe 2 or 3 columns per ship maximum. Each shipment would take months. Quarry the stone at Aswan. Shape it roughly to reduce weight, transport to the Nile, load onto river barges, float 600 kilometers down to Alexandria. Offload, wait for favorable seas, load onto Mediterranean cargo ship, sail 400 kilometers to Lebanese coast, probably Tripoli. Navigate coastal shallows, beach the ship or use harbor facilities, offload using ramps and rollers. Now comes the mountain crossing. Why? Local limestone was available. Quarried on site, free. Why transport granite 1,500 kilometers by sea and land over mountains when you have perfectly good stone next to the temple? Prestige, symbol, power. Aswan granite was the stone of pharaohs. Roman emperors wanted that connection. Egyptian temples used Aswan granite for obelisks and columns, Karnak, Luxor, Abu Simbel. The greatest monuments in Egypt. Pink granite meant imperial authority. Divine connection, eternal power. Roman emperors competing with pharaohs needed that stone. But the logistics are beyond modern projects. The Great Court columns alone represent 8,400-ton shipments from Egypt to Lebanon. Multiply that by the risk of storm and shipwreck. Mediterranean weather is unpredictable. Summer sailing season runs May to September. 4 months, maybe 5 trips per season if everything goes perfectly. That is 17 years minimum to transport just the Great Court columns. The entire project probably took 50 years. Multiple ships, dozens of shipwrecks, hundreds of workers killed in quarrying and transport accidents. The cost in lives and denarii would have bankrupted smaller provinces. But Baalbek was not a normal temple. It was a statement, the largest sanctuary in the Roman world. Pilgrims came from across the empire. Emperors consulted the oracle. The granite column said this place is equal to Egypt, equal to Rome, divine, eternal, unshakable. But here is the deeper mystery. The Emperor Justinian took 8 columns from Baalbek to Constantinople in the 6th century AD to incorporate into Hagia Sophia. That is documented. They could move them later. They understood sea transport. They had bigger ships, better harbor facilities. 6th century engineering exceeded 1st century capability, but moving them initially from Aswan to Lebanon with 1st century technology, the engineering required exceeds the stone-cutting mystery. This is a logistics mystery that nobody adequately explains. Moving 800-ton stones 900 meters is hard. Moving 100-ton columns 1,500 kilometers by sea is harder. Both required coordination and planning beyond anything else in the ancient world. Both succeeded. Both left no written records of how. New construction started. The unfinished pre-Roman sanctuary construction was incorporated into a master plan of monumentalization. Current survey and interpretation show that a pre-Roman floor level about 5 meters lower than the late Great Roman courtyard floor existed underneath. These findings, cited in Wikipedia's Temple of Jupiter Baalbek article, indicate Romans did not build the megalithic podium. They built on it. Someone else cut those stones. Someone else moved them. Someone else assembled them into a perfect platform. Then it sat, for decades, maybe centuries, exposed to weather, partially complete or partially ruined. Romans found it, recognized its value, its strength, its sacred importance. They raised the floor level 5 meters. They built temples on top. They claimed the site as their own, but they did not make the foundation. Making sure you get all this documented history, hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. This research comes from deep archaeological sources. The Arsif paper on archaeoastronomy and chronology at Baalbek published June 2016 provides alignments, data and construction phase analysis. The academia paper on the megalithic quarry of Baalbek published February 1st, 2025 documents quarrying, techniques, and stone abandonment patterns. These are not mainstream History Channel sources. These are peer-reviewed academic publications with measurements and excavation records. Back to the mysteries. The techniques match Baalbek. Herod the Great built that platform around 20 BC. Some archaeologists date Baalbek's megalithic platform to the same period, Herodian masons working in the Levant. But Herod was funded by Rome. He had access to Roman engineering. And even with that, the Temple Mount stones max out at 570 tons. Baalbek exceeds that by 230 tons per block. If Herod built Baalbek's platform, why did he use heavier stones there than at his own temple in Jerusalem? The alternative is that the platform predates Herod, predates Rome, Phoenician work, Canaanite work, Bronze Age engineering that left no written records, but left stones we cannot move with 21st century equipment. That is the mystery nobody wants to admit. We do not know who built the foundation of the largest Roman temple in history. The oracle sent him a centurion's vine staff broken into pieces. Trajan died during that campaign in 115 AD. Macrobius recorded this in the Saturnalia written around 400 AD. He also described the oracle's operation. The cult statue of Jupiter Heliopolitan was placed on a litter. Bearers carried it. The divine will moved them in certain directions. Priests decoded the movements. Similar practice to the oracle of Ammon at Siwa in Egypt. This is detailed in the Livius Baalbek Temple of Jupiter article. The oracle operated for at least 3 centuries, from the 1st century BC through the 3rd century AD. Hundreds of consultations, emperors, generals, merchants, pilgrims seeking guidance on marriages, business ventures, military campaigns, political alliances. The oracle charged fees. Significant donations to the temple treasury. The economic power of a functioning oracle cannot be overstated. Delphi in Greece controlled regional politics for centuries through oracle pronouncements. Baalbek held similar influence in Syria and the eastern provinces. The temple became one of the 2 largest sanctuaries in the Western world, rivaling Praeneste in Italy. Pilgrims came from across the Roman Empire. Emperors consulted the oracle. Military commanders, politicians, merchants. The oracle spoke through movements, through signs, through priests who interpreted divine signals. Ancient texts record other prophecies. The Palatine Anthology mentions a decree about columns cut for Baalbek, but lost at sea near Berytus. The oracle apparently commented on construction projects, provided guidance on logistics. This suggests the priests possessed practical engineering knowledge alongside religious authority. They understood stone transport, ship capacities, weather patterns. They could predict which shipments would succeed or fail based on season and sea conditions. The oracle's technical accuracy reinforced its religious authority. Then Christianity came. Theodosius I closed pagan temples in the late 4th century. Theodosius II built a basilica on the Great Court in the early 5th century. The hexagonal forecourt was transformed into a church, possibly under Theodosius I. Lightning struck the temple in 524 or 525 AD, destroying much of it. Pseudo-Zacharias of Mytilene recorded this. Byzantine Emperor Tiberius II crucified remaining pagans in the late 6th century around 570. 8 to 582 AD. The oracle fell silent, not gradually, abruptly. The knowledge of how to operate the oracle was lost within a generation. No texts survived explaining the exact procedure, no training manuals, no records of how the bearers were chosen or prepared. The oracle was a living tradition passed through practice. When the practitioners died or converted or were killed, the knowledge died with them. But the question remains, was there ever a real oracle, or was it elaborate theater? Priests manipulating bearers who manipulated pilgrims? The consistency of reported results suggests something more than fraud. Statistical probability would produce some failed predictions, some obvious manipulations, but the recorded prophecies show accuracy that troubled even skeptical ancient historians. Trajan's broken staff, the blank paper response. These are not vague predictions. They are specific symbols that came true. Did they tap into something? Psychological suggestion? Environmental cues in the temple's acoustic design? Group trance states induced by ritual and architecture? Or something else we do not understand? The oracle is silent. The mystery remains. Research published in the Journal of Archaeological Science shows the stone circle amplified human voices by over 4 decibels. The placement created clear sound inside while obscuring it outside. Ritual space, secret space, acoustic engineering. Baalbek is 10 times the size of Stonehenge with stone walls reaching 40 meters high. The Great Court measured 135 meters by 113 meters, surrounded by colonnades. Enclosed space, perfect for acoustic study. But no research has been done, no acoustic analysis, no frequency testing. Megalithic sites around the world show specific resonant frequencies, particularly around 110 Hz. This frequency matches the human vocal range and has documented effects on brain activity. Studies cited in the Academia paper on archaeoacoustics from February 2025 show that 110 Hz sound. In enclosed megalithic spaces causes measurable changes in brainwave patterns. Similar to meditative states, the Temple of Jupiter had a cella holding a golden cult statue. Macrobius described it: beardless youth, right hand holding a whip like a charioteer, left hand holding lightning bolt and wheat ears, flanked by two bulls. The god wore representations of sun and moon on his breast, a basket-shaped hat called a calathos on his head. Rituals happened in that cella: chanting, music, sacrifices. The stone walls would have reflected every sound, amplified it, focused it, created standing waves that resonated through the bodies of worshippers. Did ancient priests understand this? Did they design the acoustic space intentionally? Modern concert halls are engineered for specific reverberation times. Stone chambers in medieval cathedrals were tuned to enhance Gregorian chant. Baalbek's architects had access to that knowledge. They built spaces that worked with sound. But without measurement, we cannot say how or why. The acoustic mystery of Baalbek remains unstudied, a research opportunity ignored. The Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek faces approximately 14 degrees, 44 minutes north of east. That is not true east, not equinox sunrise. Archaeoastronomical analysis published in an ARCS paper from June 2016 calculates this orientation. At Baalbek's latitude, this alignment matches the rising sun around May 1st and August 12th on the Gregorian calendar. These dates do not correspond to any major Roman festival. They are not solstices, not equinoxes, not the founding of Rome, not any emperor's birthday. The paper suggests the alignment may point to the heliacal rising of the Pleiades. The Pleiades marked harvest time in ancient agricultural calendars. Hesiod's calendar from the 8th century BC uses Pleiades rising in early May as the signal to harvest cereals. The Heliopolitan Jupiter had clear fertility attributes: the calathos, the grain ears, walking bulls. The orientation to Pleiades would fit that aspect of the cult, but Romans typically oriented their solar temples to true east. The Temple of Ra at Heliopolis in Egypt faces true east. Most sun temples throughout the empire do the same. Baalbek does not. Some scholars doubt the sun god character of Heliopolitan Jupiter entirely. The name Heliopolis means city of the sun, but that name was Ptolemaic. Hellenistic rulers renamed the city. The original Phoenician name was tied to Baal, storm god, fertility god, sky god. The solar aspect may have been added later, a syncretism, a blending of local Baal with Egyptian Ra and Greek Helios and Roman Jupiter. The 14-degree offset suggests the temple aligned to something else, something specific to the local cult. Pre-Roman, Baal worship, storm god, not sun. The alignment discrepancy tells us the Romans built on someone else's sacred geography. They tried to fit their sun god into a space that was not designed for him. The original purpose remains hidden in those 14 degrees. Vaulted galleries run beneath the entire structure. These galleries are accessible. Tourists visit them. The Baalbek Museum is housed in one. The Wikipedia article on Baalbek confirms this: a 7-meter-tall hollow structure supporting 800-ton stones. The trilithon blocks rest on a foundation course of 350-ton stones. Those stones rest on an earlier layer of 300-ton blocks. All of this sits on top of vaulted galleries. Basic engineering says this is impossible. Load-bearing walls require solid foundations. Vaults transfer weight to their edges. The center of a vault is weak. Placing 800 tons directly above a vaulted space should cause collapse. But it has not collapsed. For 2,000 years, through multiple earthquakes. The weight distribution is calculated, precise. The vault architecture channels the load to specific points. Massive piers, load-bearing walls, arches that redirect compression forces. Roman engineers understood vault mechanics. The Colosseum uses similar principles. Massive structure built on hollow foundations with vaulted corridors. The baths of Caracalla, the Basilica of Maxentius. All hollow structures supporting tremendous weight. But none approach the scale of Baalbek. An 800-ton stone exerts pressure of approximately 28,000 kilograms per square meter on its foundation, assuming the load distributes evenly. In reality, load concentrates at corners and edges, pressure points, potential failure zones. The stones beneath must handle this pressure without cracking, without settling, without shifting even millimeters. Any movement would break the tight joints, allow water penetration. Start a cascade failure. Ancient engineers calculated load paths, traced forces from the trilithon down through foundation courses into the vault piers. They knew exactly where weight would concentrate. They reinforced those points, thickened walls, widened piers, created redundant load paths, so if one element weakened, another would compensate. Modern structural analysis using finite element modeling shows the design works, barely. The safety margin is thin. Any significant deviation in stone placement or vault construction would cause failure. The precision required extends beyond the visible stones. The entire hidden substructure had to be perfect. But did Romans build it, or did they inherit it? The vaults beneath the platform show different construction phases. Some arches are clearly Roman, brick-faced concrete, standard imperial technique. Others appear older. Rougher stonework, different technique. The hollow podium may have been part of the original pre-Roman design, a raised platform with internal galleries for storage or ritual space or structural engineering. The vaults reduce total weight while maintaining load-bearing capacity. Less material, less labor, smarter engineering. The Romans expanded it, added their temples on top, but the core engineering was already there. The weight distribution impossibility is not impossible if someone else solved it first, someone who understood load paths and vault mechanics and seismic resilience. The galleries remain, the engineering works, but the builders are lost. 31 meters high, slightly smaller than the Temple of Jupiter, much better preserved. It is one of the best preserved Roman temples anywhere. The cella interior survives almost complete. Elaborate carvings, sculpted stone ceilings, friezes depicting the legend of Dionysus, Corinthian columns inside and out. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, but the mystery is not the carving, it is the door. The main entrance to the Temple of Bacchus features a door frame carved from single blocks of stone. Each side of the frame is one piece. The lintel is one piece. Total weight of the door frame exceeds 30 tons. The door itself was probably bronze, but the stone frame remains. The frame is decorated with grapevines, cantharoi, intricate vine scrolls, all carved into solid stone before assembly. The frame fits together with zero gaps. No mortar, millimeter precision. On a decorative element, not a foundation block where precision is structural. This is artistic precision, showing off. The door frame says, we can do this. We can carve 30-ton blocks like jewelers cutting gemstones. The Temple of Bacchus was likely completed under Septimius Severus in the 190 AD. His coins are the first to show it alongside the Temple of Jupiter. That is documented in the Wikipedia article on Baalbek. The craftsmanship in the late 2nd century AD exceeded anything being built in Rome at the same time. Why? Was Baalbek a testing ground for extreme techniques? A place where master masons pushed limits because the site demanded it? The megalithic platform underneath set a standard. Romans matched it. Column bases, architraves, door frames. Every element had to equal the precision of the foundation blocks. The Temple of Bacchus door is not an engineering mystery, it is a craftsmanship mystery. Proof that ancient builders could achieve modern tolerances without modern tools. If they could do this on a door frame, what else could they do? What techniques have we lost? The Temple of Jupiter began around 16 BC and was largely finished by 60 AD. The Great Court was added under Trajan in the early 2nd century. The Temple of Bacchus completed in the late 2nd century. The Temple of Venus and other structures continued into the 3rd century. Then it stopped. Not gradually, suddenly. The forgotten stone in the quarry was abandoned mid-cut, still attached to bedrock at one end. Partially dressed on the surface, tool marks fresh, workers walked away. Other megalithic sites show the same pattern. Pumapunku in Bolivia, Ollantaytambo in Peru, Teotihuacan in Mexico. Construction stopped abruptly. Stones left half-finished, sites left incomplete. At Baalbek, the Roman explanation is clear. The crisis of the 3rd century, 235 to 284 AD, 50 years of civil war, barbarian invasions. Economic collapse, 26 emperors in 50 years, most assassinated. The empire had no money for massive temple projects in distant provinces. Construction stopped everywhere. But that does not explain the quarry, the forgotten stone. If money ran out, why start cutting a 1,650-ton block? That is months of labor, dozens of workers, massive cost. They would have known the project was ending. They would have stopped cutting new stones, used what was already finished. But the forgotten stone is half cut. The implication is that work stopped for a reason beyond economics. Perhaps the stone developed a flaw. A crack appeared. The block was abandoned. But the stone of the pregnant woman and the stone of the south sit next to it. Complete, no flaws, not moved. Also abandoned. 3 massive stones, ready or nearly ready. 900 meters from the temple, unused. The alternative explanation is darker. The builders reached a limit. 800 tons was possible. Barely. 1,000 tons was beyond them. They tried. They cut the stones. They prepared to move them. Then they realized it could not be done. Not with the available technology, not with any number of workers. The threshold had been crossed. The stones were too heavy. The project was impossible. And so they walked away, leaving behind the largest quarried stones in human history as monuments to ambition that exceeded capability. The sudden abandonment is not a mystery of construction. It is a mystery of limits. Ancient engineers knew something we are only rediscovering. There is a maximum. A point where scale defeats technique. They found it at Baalbek. We have not yet needed to. Israeli airstrikes targeted areas near the site in October and November. Mass evacuations. Tens of thousands of residents fled. UNESCO granted enhanced protection in November under the Hague Convention. This is documented in the Baalbek Stones article on Grokopedia. No direct hits reported on the archaeological core, but shrapnel, vibrations, debris. The megalithic foundations are threatened not by earthquakes or time, but by war. Preservation teams monitor the site, removing vegetation, assessing damage. The German Archaeological Institute continues research despite the conflict. Their work from 1998 to 2025 represents the most comprehensive study of Baalbek's megalithic engineering ever undertaken. Published findings challenge decades of assumptions. The stones are heavier than believed. The quarry is more complex. The pre-Roman layers are older and more extensive. Each new excavation reveals details that deepen the mystery rather than solve it. In March 2025, UNESCO sent an evaluation mission, post-conflict assessment. The temple survived another crisis, as they have survived every crisis for 2 millennia. The precise location matches Byzantine texts that reference territorial divisions around the sacred precinct. The marker is limestone, 400 kilograms. Inscribed in Greek and Aramaic, the Greek reads sacred boundary of the Heliopolitan Zeus. The Aramaic underneath uses older script, older language, Canaanite letters that predate Greek occupation by centuries. The stone was reused. The Greek inscription covers an earlier inscription worn almost smooth. Ultraviolet imaging revealed traces of Phoenician script beneath. The words are fragmentary, but the phrase Baal-Hadad appears clearly. Storm god, original god of the site. The marker sat at the edge of the sacred precinct for over 2,000 years, marking boundaries, declaring ownership, changing languages but keeping the same position. It proves continuity. The site was sacred before Greeks, before Romans, before recorded history. Someone marked this ground as holy. Someone built the massive platform to honor something. Someone cut stones that we cannot move. Someone knew something we have forgotten. The boundary marker is not a mystery itself. It is evidence that the mystery extends further back than we thought. Layer beneath layer, language beneath language, stone beneath stone. Baalbek does not reveal its secrets easily. Each answer spawns new questions. Each excavation uncovers older remains. The 12 mysteries are not separate problems. They are 12 facets of one central unknown. Who really built Baalbek's megalithic foundation? Not the temples, not the columns. The foundation, the platform. The 800-ton stones fitted without mortar. Science has theories, earthen ramps, wooden rollers, capstan winches. Hundreds of workers. Possible. Barely. But nobody has replicated it. Nobody has moved an 800-ton stone using Bronze Age tools and Roman techniques. It remains theoretical engineering, paper calculations. The stones are real. They sit there, 7 meters above ground, fitted perfectly, unmoving through earthquakes and wars and time. They are the answer. But we do not understand the question. That boundary marker still stands where it was placed. Limestone and language and mystery, cold stone marking ground that someone decided was worth this effort, worth cutting the heaviest stones in history, worth building the impossible.